I wanted to see what you think of, like what your goals are going forward with this Karnivore Kurt brand, and what made you to, what I love is your whole brand seems to be around storytelling, like your story. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to change the world, just story tell. So I kind of want to dig into what made you decide to start doing that, to be like, hey, this is powerful and I got to share this. And what are your goals for that?
Yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate the platform and the question. It's a great question. And so it's an evolution of my own personal journey. I am a CEO. I've been a CEO for about 6 years now. And before that, I was in the corporate world. So I went to school and did college and studied engineering. And then I went right into corporate world out of engineering and joined Microsoft. And I got all kinds of training with that and formal sort of corporate experience in a 100,000 person company. And it was a great experience. But for me, I was always like very sort of entrepreneurial in spirit. And I always kind of had a real curiosity to kind of hack things. And so I was always sort of interested in these concepts and brands that were kind of being peppered to us on the webs as the internet kind of became more mainstream and became more prominent. So I was following people like Tim Ferriss when he had this book, The 4-Hour Work Week. And when he started talking about like ketogenic diets back in, boy, it was like 2009, 2010, maybe, you know,
and everybody called him crazy.
And then, you know, Dave Asprey was there, and I did Microsoft for about 3.5 years. And then I got kind of sick of just how big it was and wanted to change. And I really wanted to get into sales, and I tried internally, but it was so big that they just had a real long, like, roadmap to get there that I wasn't patient enough to do that. So I was in Seattle at the time, and Zillow was a small company. It was only about 180 employees at the time. And I'd heard good things about it. And I was also interested in real estate at the time. And so I interviewed with them, and they gave me a terrible job offer, but an incredible opportunity to learn sales. And I knew I was going to be at the ground floor. And it was like going from a place where I would have to ask my manager if I could send an email to a place where they're like, pick up the phone and call someone and like try to get them to buy this. And it was like, it was a total 180. And so I went into Zillow and I learned a ton about sales, and I really excelled at that. And I became number one in the company in sales. And the organization grew really fast. We grew into over 300 salespeople, and now it's like 6,000 people, the company. Yeah. But when I left, it was 2,000. I moved into travel sales. I represented the Southern region. That's why I moved to Texas. I visited Austin, Houston, Dallas a lot with my travel. And I was one of the 3 travel reps when we only had 3 people selling in the market for Zillow. All of that led me to kind of build enough confidence to go out on my own. So when I turned 30, I'm now 35, almost 36. Mm-hmm. I had tried a few little side hustles, but I never got enough momentum to kind of get them off the ground. And so I was like, you know, if I don't quit corporate life, it's going to get way too comfortable. I'm already pretty damn comfortable right now. I need to do something to force myself. So I burned the boat and I resigned on my 30th birthday. And I was living in New York City at the time. I was like the manager of their New York sales team. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started looking online at different things, and I started reading about forums, and I got into internet marketing. And my little brother at the time, who was 19, was reading STM forums. I don't know if you ever saw Stack That Money, mm-hmm. Or the Warrior forums. And these were all the online forums back in like 2013, 14, 15 that were just showing people how to basically buy media online and do paid traffic. And so I knew nothing about it, but I was very interested in it because it promised a lot of freedom and low overhead and a very kind of high margin business model. And so I got into that, and I struggled for the first 1.5 years. I didn't have a mentor. I highly recommend, if you quit corporate life, that you either join someone in a very small organization who can mentor you and become like a business partner in that respect, or you have a very clear path before you go off on your own. Because what I did was just like quit, take a 6-month mini retirement, and then try to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I found some mentors through the forums. And when I went and traveled and worked with them, I learned the space. So that's a long kind of sort of diatribe into what got me into the carnivore diet. But fast forward 2014, I started Crush for Ties, which is our affiliate company. We just closed out to 2019 at 5.1 million in revenue. So really healthy company.
Yeah.
Best year ever in business. We've never lost money in a year. Was the best year I ever had as an owner and in terms of profitability. So really thrilled with all that.
Yeah.
But the first like 2-3 years, it was kind of like a really, really bumpy ride. And you know this, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, so you know, it's very up and down, but we were, you know, our business was purely based on buying Facebook ad traffic. So it was based on buying Facebook ad traffic and running aggressive diet trials and in very sort of like niche verticals within Facebook that tend to be very nuanced and tricky. And so they can have a lot of success for very short periods of time. For example, in August last year, I think we did $500,000 of our revenue in just 1 month. And then another month we can have a negative, and it's to be expected like that. It's not a traditional business model where you at least have a little bit more consistency.
Sure.
So I was a new entrepreneur, didn't have a real mentor, was just figuring things out. And I basically gave myself anxiety. I just had really bad anxiety. And I did not know anything about anxiety. It got to a point where I was like uncomfortable leaving the house, and I was uncomfortable meeting people in person. I would just get like, just these like, symptoms of just feeling like constricted and like not being like able to escape, almost like claustrophobia. And I think there was a combination of my diet, drinking coffee, the bulletproof ketogenic diet, all these sort of like superfood smoothies I was following with Rhonda Patrick. And I was trying to sort of pour all these things in, and it culminated into a sort of like climax, if you will, in 2018, where I had like a panic attack. I was sitting in my office. Our business was doing really bad. We had 3 months of just like losses, and we were kind of at a point where we didn't know what we were going to do. My business partner and I had brought my little brother in, and we were just not communicating. And so we had really just sort of gotten to a point where we were sitting there and we were going through the motions, but it was a toxic, it wasn't going to like go the way we wanted to. And we were just very different. You know, he was very creative and very kind of, focused in that sort of respect. And I was much more like, let's create order and really keep things nice and neat. And I want process. And so long story short, I had that experience, and I just, from that point, I was kind of wrecked. I was just stuck, feeling emotionally stuck. And it was a very dark time, and I was just looking for answers. And so I started reading a bunch of books on anxiety, started reading a bunch of books on trauma, which was like really eye-opening. I started seeing counselors in both of those areas. And eventually I was like talking to my counselors and going, you know, I think I have trauma. I think this is exactly what happened to me. And it sounds crazy because I've never been to war or I've never experienced anything, but as a human being, you know, we have these triune brains, and if you, you can easily psych yourself out. And if you don't know what you're doing and you're not focused on it, and then you combine that with a diet that isn't conducive, even though you think it's super healthy, you can get into a bad place. So I met Paul. I just met Paul randomly. He was in my rock climbing gym, and we were both going to the same Seattle bouldering project, which has a parent project here where I live now in Austin. And we just became friends. He was very like into the health space, and you know, he's got that really he's got that real good knack of kind of helping people understand more of the biochemistry of things and kind of look at labs and things like that. And so when you talk to him, and you're like, holy shit, you're a doctor, and like I can text you and become your friend, and like you're not just some, you know, doctor who wants to like prescribe a medication to me to fix something. We really clicked. And then I knew he was a psychiatrist. He was studying to be a psychiatrist. And so that combined with my experience right into that with the trauma and the anxiety really got me clicking with him. He went on the carnivore diet after he saw the Joe Rogan interview with Jordan Peterson. And then he went and saw the Sean Baker interview. And as soon as he got on the carnivore, maybe a week or two after that, because I'd been seeing him almost every day at the gym, he's like, dude, there's something here. Like, you got to try this. And so that started me on carnivore diet about 15 months ago, September of 2018. About 2-3 months transition of just kind of figuring things out, more like 6 months of kind of nuances.
Sure.
I really have seen like my trauma is almost completely gone. My anxiety is very, very manageable. It's probably more even keel than the 40 million Americans that experience it, today. And it's no longer a disorder to me. Like I feel very resilient, and the diet has been a huge factor. I would say that's probably 50% of the game.
Yeah.